Japan's defense establishment has faced sustained criticism over transparency at home, from secrecy laws that limit public access to information to major military decisions that critics say received limited public scrutiny. In 2025, Human Rights Watch warned that Japan's proposed espionage legislation could restrict press freedom, weaken whistleblower protections, and reduce public access to national security information. That matters, because Japan is not just any country adjusting its military posture. Its modern identity is deeply shaped by a constitution that explicitly renounces war. So when its defense policy evolves, the question is not only what is changing, but how clearly those changes are being explained to the public. In a system that depends on informed consent, clarity becomes part of legitimacy. Here are 5 areas where analysts, journalists, and civil society groups argue the Japanese government has not fully clarified or openly communicated key aspects of its national defense policy. The first is the real scale and intent of Japan's counterstrike capability. In December 2022, Japan approved one of the most significant shifts in its defense posture since World War II. Its new national security strategy introduced what officials call a counterstrike capability, the ability to target enemy missile launch sites under specific conditions. Then Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada described this capability as defensive and a last resort, a framing that aligns with the government's long-standing interpretation of Article 9 of the Constitution. But this is where the debate begins. The systems being acquired, including US-made Tomahawk cruise missiles, with ranges of around 1,600 kilometers, are not traditionally defensive tools. They are designed for precision strikes deep into enemy territory. That does not automatically make the policy unconstitutional, but it does make the distinction between defense and offense far less intuitive to the public. For decades, Japan's security posture was built around reactive capabilities. Missile interceptors and layered defense systems were designed to neutralize incoming threats, rather than project force outward. Counterstrike capability changes that equation. It introduces the possibility that Japan could act before or during an attack in ways that extend beyond its own territory. That shift carries legal, strategic, and ethical implications that are still being debated. The policy itself was approved through cabinet decisions tied to 3 major security documents. While those decisions were publicly announced and covered in policy circles, some critics argue that the scale and implications of the change were not widely debated among the broader public. There was discussion in the Diet and in the media, but not the kind of sustained nationwide debate that typically accompanies a fundamental shift in military doctrine. That gap matters because the real-world application of this capability depends heavily on interpretation. What qualifies as an imminent threat? What level of intelligence is required to justify a strike? How quickly would such a decision need to be made in a crisis? These are not abstract questions. They define how the policy would actually function under pressure. And for many observers, those details remain unclear in public-facing explanations. The second issue is the true cost of the defense buildup and who is ultimately paying for it. As part of the same 2022 strategy, Japan committed to increasing defense spending to 2% of GDP by 2027, bringing total planned spending to roughly 43 trillion yen over 5 years. This marks a significant departure from decades of relatively constrained military budgets. The government has outlined multiple funding mechanisms, including tax increases, reallocations from existing budgets, and the use of non-tax revenue sources. However, the implementation has been politically sensitive. Proposed tax increases, particularly those affecting corporations and income surtaxes, have faced pushback, leading to delays and adjustments in how and when they are introduced. As a result, while the overall direction is clear, the detailed funding pathway is more complex. The financial structure is documented, but it is spread across multiple budget categories and supplementary documents. For the average citizen, understanding exactly how the buildup is being financed and what trade-offs it involves can be difficult without specialized knowledge. There is also a longer-term dimension to consider, when part of a major spending increase is supported by borrowing or deferred fiscal measures. The financial burden extends into the future. That does not necessarily make the policy problematic, but it does raise questions about how clearly those long-term implications are communicated. In a democratic system, the clarity of that communication matters just as much as the policy itself. The third area concerns what is happening at U.S. military bases on Japanese soil. Japan hosts approximately 54,000 U.S. military personnel, making it the largest forward deployment of American forces anywhere in the world. This presence is governed by the U.S.-Japan Status of Forces Agreement, or SOFA, signed in 1960. Under SOFA, Japan generally retains legal jurisdiction over crimes committed by U.S. personnel. However, the agreement also includes provisions related to custody and legal procedures that have, at times, generated public concern. In particular, cases involving Okinawa have drawn attention to how these arrangements operate in practice and how they are perceived by local communities. Okinawa carries a disproportionate share of the U.S. military presence in Japan, and that has shaped local sentiment for decades. The planned relocation of Marine Corps Air Station Futenma to Hanoko has become a focal point of this tension. Local referendums have shown strong opposition to the project, while the central government has continued to move forward with it, citing national security priorities. This dynamic highlights a broader issue. National defense decisions are made at the central level, but their physical and social impact is often concentrated in specific regions. When local opposition and national policy diverge so sharply, it raises questions about how those trade-offs are explained and justified to the people most directly affected. The fourth area involves the extent of Japan's intelligence and security framework. In 2013, Japan enacted the Act on the Protection of Specially Designated Secrets, allowing the government to classify a wide range of information related to defense, diplomacy, and national security. The law includes penalties of up to 10 years in prison for unauthorized disclosures. At the time, journalists, academics, and civil liberties groups raised concerns that the law could limit investigative reporting and reduce transparency. The government argued that stronger information protection was necessary for modern security cooperation, particularly with allies. Both of those positions can be true at the same time. Modern intelligence sharing requires confidentiality, but increased secrecy also reduces the amount of information available to the public. Finding the balance between those two realities is an ongoing challenge. Japan has expanded its security cooperation with partners, including the United States, Australia, and European countries. While the existence of these partnerships is public, the operational details are not, which is standard in intelligence work. However, that lack of visibility can still contribute to broader concerns about oversight and accountability, especially when combined with strict secrecy laws. Recent discussions about expanding cyber defense capabilities have added another layer to this debate. Proposals to allow more proactive cyber measures reflect the changing nature of modern conflict, but they also raise new questions about legal boundaries, civilian oversight, and how such capabilities would be governed in practice. The fifth and final area is the question of readiness and internal pressures within the self-defense forces. Japan's military operates advanced equipment and maintains a high level of technical capability, but it also faces structural challenges that are becoming harder to ignore. Recruitment has been a persistent issue, driven largely by demographic trends. Japan's population is aging, and the pool of eligible recruits is shrinking. This creates pressure on force sustainability over the long term. While the Ministry of Defense acknowledges recruitment challenges, critics argue that the scale of the issue is not always presented in clear, accessible terms. Operational readiness is another area where public information can be limited. Reports from Japanese media outlets have highlighted concerns about maintenance workloads and the strain placed on personnel. These reports do not suggest systemic failure, but they do point to areas where capacity may be under pressure. There have also been cases that raised questions about procurement practices and oversight. Incidents involving major contractors have drawn attention to the complexity of defense procurement and the importance of transparency in that process. The government has responded to such cases, but they continue to shape public perception of how the system operates. The Ministry of Defense publishes an annual white paper outlining strategy, capabilities, and threat assessments. It is a detailed document, but like many official reports, it presents information in a structured and strategic format. Critics argue that this can make it difficult for the public to form a clear picture of limitations or internal challenges without additional context. None of this means Japan is uniquely opaque. Every country manages sensitive information when it comes to national security. But in a democracy, transparency is not just about what is classified. It is about whether citizens have enough clear, accessible information to understand the direction and implications of major policy decisions. In Japan, the combination of secrecy laws, complex policy frameworks, and evolving security challenges has created an ongoing debate about where that balance should be drawn. That debate is not just about external threats, it is about how decisions are communicated, how trade-offs are explained, and how accountability is maintained. Because in the end, national defense is not only about protecting a country from outside risks, it is also about maintaining trust within it. And that trust depends in part on how openly a government communicates with its own people.